Hi, I'm Konstantin Baum, Master of Wine, and we're all looking for great wines that don't break the bank. This is why I asked Leon to prepare a blind tasting for me of wines from the Wine Spectator Top 100 list that retail for $30 or less, so that I can find the best of the best. Let's go. The Wine Spectator is one of the, if not the most widely distributed wine magazines in the world, and they're putting together a top 100 list every year. They don't just include all of the highest rated wines in that list, but select the wines based on the following factors: quality, value, availability, and excitement, whatever those really mean. The list normally includes wines that are widely available, so you should be able to get them in your own market. Leon picked wines that are $30 or less, and I will blind taste those wines, try to identify them, and I will rate them so that you get the selection of the selection, the best of the best, the creme de la creme, the pick of the litter. Well, let's just taste. But before I jump into this lake of wine, if you're new to this channel and want to learn more about wine, then please do subscribe. It really helps me out. And now let's taste. All right, we're starting with wine number one. And wine number one is a white wine. This is good. This is really good stuff. It smells of lemon zest, but also rosemary, and there's some herbaceous notes coming through. It's quite complex. There's a bit of lime as well. It's very, very nice. On the palate, it's quite rich and grippy. There's good acidity, good freshness there. It's quite lively, quite intense, but really balanced. I mean, there's good body, but also lots of freshness. This is not easy for me. This is quite Burgundian in style. It's quite rich and complex. It doesn't have all that much oak. There's a little bit of it, but not too much. So it feels quite fresh and vibrant, more on the lively side. But for me, this doesn't really smell like Chardonnay. There's this funny mintiness coming through. So it's quite difficult to pinpoint that. This should be another slightly neutral grape variety, not necessarily something that I taste a lot of because it doesn't jump at me. It's more, in a way, reminds me a little bit of Chenin Blanc or maybe Albarino, maybe Garnacha Blanca, white Grenache. So it's not necessarily something very opulent in flavor. But yeah, I really struggle putting this down somewhere. Quite difficult. What I can say though is that it is really good. It's quite complex. It's very animating, very interesting nose on the palate. It's concentrated but also fresh and vibrant. Really complete wine. I would rate this 91 points. I think it is really, really good. Now let's check out what it is. So this is Monte del Fra Ca del Magro Custoza Superiore. I have no clue what this is. So Wine Spectator rated this 90 points and it retails for $22. And I think this is a damn good wine. Really, really good. Really interesting. It's a cuvée of Garganega, Trebbiano, Cortese and Chardonnay. So there's a little bit of everything in there. But all of those grape varieties are more neutral grape varieties. And yeah, so I wasn't completely wrong, but there's no way that I could have identified this wine. Sorry. So now let's continue with wine number two. Wine number two is also not super aromatic. It's golden in color. It smells of ripe apple, lemon zest, lemon tart. So kind of similar to the previous wine. There's not this much herbaceousness there. It's more fruit driven. There's also some flavors coming through that remind me of lees, so the context of yeast. That's why I get lemon tart. So there's more like a creamy dimension to the aroma as well. On the palate, it's really grippy, fresh, vibrant, textured. It's quite a lively wine. It has good acidity. It has good grip. It's quite complete. In my opinion, this could be Chenin Blanc. It could also be Grüner Veltliner, but I think it is Albarino, a grape variety that is quite widely planted on the western side of the Iberian Peninsula. So it produces really interesting, lively, stimulating wines that go really well with seafood. And I think this might be it. Tasting it again, I kind of think it could also be Chenin Blanc. It has this slightly funky flavor that Chenin sometimes has. It's tricky, but I'm going to go for Albarino, and I think this is really good. Again, I would rate this 91 points. It's a really complete, refreshing, mouth-watering wine, no matter what it really is. But let's find out. What? So this is Chardonnay. That's weird, but this is not a good start. That's not how I wanted this to go. But it's a good wine, for sure. Doesn't really feel 100% like a Chardonnay to me, but it is. Alright, this is the De Wetshof Bon Vallon Chardonnay from Robertson in South Africa. It received 91 points from Wine Spectator and it retails for $24 and it has lots of medals. Check this out. Quite special. I'm not a big fan of those medals, but hey, if you like them, then put them on your label. That's fine. So we're moving on to wine number 3. And there's quite a lot of CO2 in that wine. So that might mean that it's a young wine, but it doesn't really tell me anything else about the wine, really. The nose and the palate really tell me a lot though about this wine. This is quite classic, I would say. It smells of lime, a little bit of rubber. It is quite aromatic, quite intense on the palate. It has a high level of acidity. There's also some residual sugar, so there's a good balance between the fresh and vibrant acidity and the slight sweetness there. So this reminds me of Riesling, but not Riesling from Germany or the Alsace. It's more like a Riesling from a New World region. A New World region that is maybe a little bit hotter, a little bit more sunny than what we're used to back home in Germany. I think this smells like Clare Valley Riesling. It could also be Washington Riesling, so from the Pacific Northwest of the US. They can be very similar in style, in my opinion. Tricky. However, this is an American magazine, so let's just say it's from Washington State. It could just as well be from Clare. I confuse the two wines quite frequently. I think they are very similar in style very often, but as this is an American publication, maybe they are more likely to include an American Riesling. But I'm sure about the Riesling. I hope that I'm right though. I'm not sure. Well, I'm sure. Am I? Don't know. Let's open it. All right. I'm back, baby. So this is the Eroica Riesling from Washington State. It's a cooperation between Chateau Saint-Michel and Ernie Lozen, Dr. Lozen from Germany, and they make that wine over there. It is slightly off dry. I think, well, it doesn't say how much sugar it has, but it definitely has some sugar. And it's quite a nice Riesling. I forgot to rate it, and I would rate this 89 points. This is pretty solid. It's not the greatest Riesling of all time in my opinion, but it's pretty good. Wine Spectator rated it 91 points and it retails for $20. And I've been to the winery and tasted the wine there, and I thought it was quite interesting. I think it's a great door opener for Riesling in general if there is a big producer getting behind this varietal. It's interesting that Chateau Saint-Michel is the biggest producer of Riesling in the world. At least they were the biggest producer of Riesling in the world. A winery from the US is the biggest producer of Riesling. That will shock some German winemakers for sure. So, wine number 4. And it looks really dark. Quite a dark wine. Golden. This is a fascinating wine. A slightly more neutral style of wine again. It smells a little bit of apple juice. It smells also of lemon juice. It's quite refined, fresh, lively. It feels a little bit natural. And I have no idea what it is. On the palate, it's quite big without being fat. I don't think there's a lot of alcohol here, but there's quite a lot of concentration there. The acidity is fresh, quite grippy. This is bone dry. Feels even drier after the Riesling. Interesting. There's also this hint of reduction there. And this all kind of reminds me of, again, those grape varieties, Albarino, Chenin Blanc, Grüner Veltliner. It's, I hope, not again a Chardonnay. I don't think it's a Chardonnay. But it's really difficult to grab it. I really struggle here. I'm going to go again to Albarino, to the western coast of the Iberian Peninsula. I think it is difficult. I'm really not convinced that I'm right, but it feels a bit like one of those wines. I actually think that winemaking plays a big role here as well. This feels very hands-off, low levels of sulfites, and just let the wine do what it does. So this could be like a natural wine. It was picked by Leon, so of course it's a natural wine. Let's have a look. What? Easy. The wine is the 2019 Nossa Calcário. It's a Bical, that's the grape variety, and it's from Bairrada, and the winemaker here is Filipa Pato, one of the most famous winemakers in Portugal. I rate this 91 points. Wine Spectator rated it 93 points. It retails for $29 and am I beating myself up about the fact that I didn't identify Bical? Not really. But it's pretty good wine. I would recommend this. Moving on to wine number 5, the first red wine. This is really dark. It's difficult to see your fingers through it, so it's a really dark wine. The wine smells of blackberries, blueberries. It's quite intense, quite brooding. There's also some spiciness coming through. On the palate, it's really rich and grippy. There's quite a lot of tannins there, but good freshness too. So there's structure and concentration, but it doesn't feel alcoholic. For me, this is difficult. It feels like the old world. It's not really a new world style of wine, but it feels like it's from a warm climate in the old world, somewhere in South Europe. So Spain, Portugal, southern Italy come to mind. I think this is probably where this wine is from. The absence of obvious oak points more towards Italy or maybe Portugal. It doesn't have like the vanilla flavor that you get in most concentrated, rich Spanish wines. So it feels a little bit more fruit driven. It could be something from Sicily, but not really something from the Italian mainland. It could also be Sardegnian Cannonau, Grenache Noir, that is usually a bit more structured than what I know from the southern Rhone, for example. But for me, this is more Portuguese, I think, because it's a bit, quite clean fruit flavor, quite a lot of concentration. But I couldn't really say where in Portugal this is from. It could be from the Douro, it could be from the Dow. Kind of difficult. Leon is really not making my life any easier. Thank you, Leon. I think this is a good wine, but it's not as good as some of the whites that we had so far. I think for me, this is 88 points. It's not amazing. I think there is something missing to make it really a great wine, but it's very good. Let's have a look. All right, so this is from the Douro, from Portugal. It's called Xisto Limitado. It was rated 91 points on Wine Spectator and it retails for $27. And I think out of the bunch so far, this is the wine that I like the least. It's not a bad wine, but it's not really super interesting. Moving on with wine number 6. Wine number 6 is definitely quite a bit lighter in color. It's not as concentrated. I can actually see my fingers through the wine. But where could this be from? I think this doesn't feel like the Southern Rhone. It doesn't have the roundness and richness. It doesn't feel like the New World. I think it should be from Europe. It could be Priorat, for example, but Priorat is also a bit more generous. For me, Terra Alta would be an option. That's a region that specializes on Grenache and they are quite high, at a high elevation. So the wines are a bit more structured, a bit more grippy. It could also be Cannonau that I mentioned earlier, the Grenache version from Sardegna. But yeah, I think this could be Terra Alta in Spain. But it is quite rustic. I don't think it's a very harmonious wine. I think this is a bit tough. I rate this 85 points. I don't think it's that good. Well, let's have a look at what it actually is. Damn it! I was there and then I went somewhere else. It's Cannonau di Sardegna, so it's Grenache from Sardegna. It's the 2018 Riserva from Sella e Mosca. Wine Spectator rated this 90 points, which is a bit high in my opinion, and it retails for $18. So let's move on to number 7. Lucky number 7, isn't it? Let's hope this is a lucky wine. So this brings me straight into the New World. It's quite aromatic, quite intense, quite juicy, quite round. It's well made. There's also a spicy dimension to it, but it's quite a fruit-driven red. It smells of cherries, blackberries, cassis, but there are also flavors of pepper and a little bit pencil shavings coming through. On the palate is really rich and round, but there are grippy tannins. They're just covered by this velvety texture, and the alcohol is fairly high. I would say it's 14.5%. So yeah, pretty high. For me, this smells and tastes like a Bordeaux cuvée, and that doesn't really limit my options in the New World too much, because pretty much every New World winemaking country also produces a Bordeaux cuvée. A Bordeaux cuvée is a blend usually of Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, maybe Cabernet Franc, maybe Malbec. So I think there's a bit of a mix of different grape varieties going on here. It feels pretty high end, so as we are only tasting wines that are $30 or less, I don't think this is from Napa. I don't think it's from any premium wine growing region focusing on those grape varieties in Australia or in New Zealand. I actually think it's Argentina or Chile, and it feels more Argentinian in a way. It's kind of more ripe and round and rich, whereas Chile would be a little bit more minty, a little bit more refined usually. Shall we have a look? Let's open this. I got it. 100 points from me, not for the wine, but for my guess, I guess. It's the 2018 Clos de los Siete from Argentina, Mendoza in Argentina. I didn't rate this. I would actually rate this 91 points. It's really good. It's quite complete. Everything is kind of in the right place. It's a pretty good one. Wine Spectator rated this 90 points and it retails for $20, which is pretty cheap, I think. I mean, this is a solid red wine. This is not a classic Bordeaux cuvée. There's also Syrah involved in the blend, but the rest are the classic Bordeaux varietals: Malbec, Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Merlot. So I was pretty damn right here. I gotta tap myself a little bit on the shoulder after all those failures. The last wine number 8. Wine number 8 has a medium intense color. It smells of cherries, a little bit of like dust and ash, and maybe even a little bit of chocolate, but just a tiny bit. It is really good. It feels very much old world in style. It feels like it's from a cooler Central European place, so it doesn't really have the concentration and richness of Southern Europe, but it's also not a lighter Pinot Noir from Germany, for example. So there is quite a great balance here. This could maybe be a Gamay from Beaujolais. It could also be something from Austria, for example, a Zweigelt. But for me, this feels quite a bit like Piedmont. It feels a bit like Barbera. Could also be Dolcetto, but it has this really fresh and vibrant acidity that Dolcetto doesn't necessarily have. Man, it's long. It's like a really, really good cherry juice. It's super fresh. It's really, really nice. This should be a great wine with food. If you have something a little bit greasy and richer, this is the wine that breaks up everything. I rate this 91 points. It's a delicious wine. Doesn't really have the concentration and seriousness to be rated much higher than that, but it's really, really good. It's a beautiful one. And I hope it's a Barbera d'Alba, I guess. Let's have a look. I did it again. Pio Cesare Barbera d'Alba 2019. This was rated 92 points by Wine Spectator and it retails for $27. And this is a great bargain. Pio Cesare is one of the top producers from the region, especially well known for the Barolos. But this is a beautiful, beautiful wine. And I think at this price point, you can't go wrong here. This is good. Okay, this was a fascinating tasting. I think we have some amazing wines here on the table. And I gotta say, the white wines again overperformed. White wines tend to be really, really great when it comes to this value category. They tend to be undervalued, so you get some really good stuff at below $30. My favorites of the tasting were the first, the Custoza, which was just beautiful. And I also really like the Nossa Calcário. When it comes to the red wines, I gotta say the Pio Cesare and the Clos de los Siete were my favorites. I didn't love those two wines, the Cannonau in particular, but they were, in my opinion, not that interesting, not that great in quality. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, then please like it down here, subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. My question of the day is, what is your favorite wine under $30? Please comment down below, let me know. And I hope I see you guys again soon. Until then, stay thirsty.